Hey everyone, Keegan here, and this past weekend I saw The Kingsman and wanted to share my thoughts on it. Now, I thought this movie it had a lot of good elements in it, but overall, just alright. And that pretty much wraps up my spoiler-free review, so from here on out, we are going to be talking spoilers. For a Kingsman movie, I thought this movie was actually pretty tame and not so far-fetched as the previous two installments of the Kingsman movies. I do think the fighting was actually still in the same style, and I really liked that. There was a lot less slow-mo, which I think was also nice. I think it got a little overbearing in the second movie of the Kingsman, but the fighting wasn't quite as polished looking, which makes sense because they aren't training specifically for this task yet. They're just using prior knowledge from military experience to fight people. And you gotta love the fight with Rasputin. I think that was clearly the best one, where he's dancing around to all the different songs and deflecting attacks, and he's actually putting up one hell of a fight. It takes pretty much everyone there to take him out, and I thought that was really fun. I thought that the stuff before the fight was actually a little weird, but I'm glad they fixed his leg, so that was good to see. Now for the big main con that I had, and this I feel like is a lot of where people might have been shocked to see when Conrad was shot in the head and killed. Now, I'm fine with the actual element of killing the son to make the Duke more receptive to starting the intelligence service. But what I did not appreciate was feeling like I wasted half of the movie just on Conrad. And it would have been a lot better, I think, if Conrad had been a background character as we watched the Duke and the Duke perform his duties and start this intelligence service up with Conrad in the background as a background character. We watch him grow up, we get kind of attached to him, and then he goes off to war and dies. Now the Duke's sad, and he goes through his whole redemption arc. But the way they did it in this movie, I thought was a little weird in the fact that they made him a main character. So Conrad had very specific scenes just for him and developing him, and because he died, I don't think that added a lot to the movie. And this felt like a long movie already to me, and I think part of that is because of Conrad and his whole story feeling useless at the end of the day. I would have got the same effect, I think, if they had just sent a telegram back to the Duke after Conrad had gone off to war, and the Duke got a telegram, and then it said, hey, your son went off and died at war. Then the Duke breaks down. I think that hits the same emotional impact in that scene than the long hour-plus prequel with Conrad. And I think it's kind of a cheap shot at just eliciting a shock factor from the audience, like, oh my god, they killed him. But really, I don't think it had anything to do with the story other than the fact that he died, which provokes his father to go off and do his own thing. So that's kind of where I stumbled through the movie in my enjoyment and saying, well, man, why just watch an hour of this kid growing as a person, learning to train, learning to do all these things, wanting to be a hero, and then he dies halfway through the movie, and I'm left with great, let's go back to the Duke. I would have rather seen a prequel to the Duke fighting in his previous wars and him learning and him training rather than Conrad playing in the background, But other than that, I just don't think it was super necessary. I think this movie may have felt so long because they tried to cram so much stuff into it as well. I think you literally could have had an entire movie with Conrad and the Duke and their relationship as father and son, learning to trust each other, learning to develop and grow in their relationships, and how Conrad goes off and dies in the war, and then that sparks the Duke to do something about it. But because that wasn't the movie, that was only half of the movie, then it felt really rushed, and the villains I thought were good, but I also thought that the fact that none of them got a lot of screen time. I mean, I think every villain on the council, other than Rasputin, only got maybe 5-10 minutes at most on screen. So I think that they were kind of wasted. His whole inner council, for the most part, you didn't really get to see them and interact with them too much. I think it could have been an entire movie just with the king and the duke dealing with putting these people or killing these people off, essentially. And I think it would have been nice to see that in a long, more focused movie on that element of the story. And then this movie could have been the prequel to them putting together the Kingsman in that sense. I understand that that movie probably would have been boring, probably would not have also been received super well by critics. So I think it just felt to me like they were rushing to get to the point where the Kingsman Secret Service intelligence agency, or whatever you want to call it, was stood up. I did like all the villains, though. I thought, generally speaking, they weren't super wacky or crazy or doing anything off the walls, but I thought they were pretty good, other than, again, Rasputin. I think all of them were fine. I did really enjoy the twist with the shepherd being Morton, and from Scotland. I did not see that coming. I was actually sad for him when I thought that ship had blown up. Actually, what I really thought is I thought he fell overboard when he walked out there in a huge storm. Who does that? Walks out on the deck of a ship? That's just asking to be thrown overboard. But I don't know. Maybe that's just my personal take on it. But I did like seeing him as a shepherd. I thought the fight was fun. The end sequence was really fun when they're trying to get on top of the giant hill and his maid is taking all these sharp shots, and his bodyguard, I guess, I'm not really sure what the other guy was, but the bodyguard was taking people out left and right. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that entire fight scene with them taking out all the shepherds, cutting heads off and things. That was really interesting and a lot of fun. And then the shepherd fight itself was pretty fun, and I like how he was constantly taking cheap shots and trying to kill the Kingsman any way that he could. And then, of course, the sheep at the end there, or the goat, I guess it was, not the sheep, but the goat stabs him in the leg, and I thought that was okay, but I really liked that the Duke did end up throwing him off. I was like, please don't pull him off to take him in for processing or whatever needs to be done in a legal sense, because this guy is clearly going to try to stab you in the back. He's already tried to do it a few times throughout this fight. Don't give him that other chance. Cut the rope and be done with it, which they did, and I was happy to see that. Overall, though, I think that I am actually excited for the second movie if they end up doing a sequel, because it was set up in the cutscenes after the credits, and they had, Hitler walk in. World War II is probably going to spin up here soon. The Kingsman will be called into that. I think that movie will actually be a lot better than this one, because this one was setting a lot of groundwork, and the next one can be a lot more focused on the mission and what they have to do, and every story point, I think, will be less so focused on their personal stories and their personal tragedies of getting through these really hard times, dealing with his son. So I think it's going to be a lot less of that and a lot more of the story-focused stuff, which I am very excited to see that kind of stuff. So still have hope for the sequel, prequel. If anyone has any thoughts about the movie or any thoughts about my thoughts about the movie, please leave them down in the comments. I'd really appreciate that, and I'd love to have a discussion with anybody who wanted to share something. But I think that's going to be it for me now. I will catch you guys in the next video.